Hello, welcome to English with Mrs. Smith. In this series of videos, we're looking at directed writing text types, starting with the journal. As we explore elements of journal writing, we're going to address certain assessment objectives for writing and for reading. For example, you need to organise and structure ideas. You need to use a register that's appropriate for a journal. You have to decide what is relevant and select those points for the task. You also have to show your understanding of things that have been expressed or implied in the original text, and then to develop those points in your journal writing. Students have many questions about the precise nature of a journal and the distinction with a diary. They wonder whether they should include feelings in a journal. Who is the actual audience for this directed writing? How does it start? How should it end? And how can you manipulate tense in order to pick up the maximum number of points? Let's try and answer some of these questions. If you're wondering what to include in the journal, remember that as a directed writing task, your journal content is linked directly to the resource text. So read the directions closely and identify these key points. Who are you writing as? Have you been given a very specific audience? Are there particular details that you must include? Have you been given a fixed time frame? Scan the original text and highlight all the points that seem relevant. Arrange those points in chronological order and then consider points of view. How would the writer react and feel about each of these events? This is the content of your journal. Many students ask, what is the difference then between a diary and a journal? A diary is a record of very personal recollections and feelings. It's intended to remain strictly private, written very often in abbreviations or in a very informal language, sometimes in fragments, whereas a journal is a record of an experience, usually related to something remarkable, a journey or an extraordinary situation. It's intended to be shared with a wide audience, and it's often intended for publication, so the language is far more formal. So, you've highlighted and selected the key points to include in your journal, and you want to know how to begin. Bear in mind, as a general rule, a journal is used to recount events from the very recent past, often one day at a time, written at the end of that day, looking back. For example, today began with promise, a clear sky, a gentle breeze, and a hearty breakfast. It seemed an auspicious start to our voyage. Alternatively, to open your journal entry, you might decide to make brief comment on events from the past few days, if that seems appropriate. The past few days have revealed to me so much about myself that I did not know before this expedition. 3 days ago, I could not have imagined how we would be tested by this place and the dreadful price of our quest. One exciting option is to begin with a hook. 1 or 2 sentences which convey the significance of the day's events. For example, who could have foreseen the terrible dangers waiting to ensnare us this morning? How might we have avoided the tragic consequences of our ignorance and innocence? Perhaps you could begin with a dramatic exclamation to grab the attention of your audience and suggest a thrilling episode to follow. For example, dead. So many dead and countless casualties whose future is uncertain. Where did we go wrong? Remember, your goal is to engage the interest of your audience, so don't miss any opportunity to create some drama. In order to test your organisational skills and demonstrate real confidence in this text type, you might choose to try and combine past, present and future tense as you write the journal. A journal generally recounts events in the recent past in chronological order. So you might ask, how can we incorporate variety in tense? Well, think about point of view. The writer relays past events and is likely to remark on his or her thoughts or feelings at that time. And the writer might also comment on their thoughts and feelings as they write the journal. The same writer may even express their hopes and fears for the future. They could conjecture about what may happen next. Let's look at an example of this in action, past, present and future tense. As I surveyed the horizon, the only suggestion of bad weather seemed miles away, no imminent threat to our progress. Reassured, I thought it was an auspicious sign. Now I realise that I was foolish to ignore those dark, distant clouds. As we are tossed about by the heavy grey seas, hindsight scolds me for making such a careless mistake. Now I pray that the high winds will subside, so that we might still reach our destination tomorrow, or I cannot predict how the men will react. And finally, you may be asking, should I combine facts and feelings when writing a journal? Imagine, a journal is not simply a catalogue of facts. Nobody wants to read a list of events. That would be dull. As we've already seen, in a journal, the writer records an incident and then comments on its impact on him or her and on others. The writer may describe how they were feeling at the time of the event, then comment on how their feelings have changed as they write about that incident in their journal. The writer might highlight feelings of wonder and awe, shock, horror, disappointment, misery, or a sense of good fortune and celebration. Remember, your goal is to show your understanding of the key points as you develop them. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment in the box below. If you have ideas for topics for future videos, again, please leave a comment. Look forward to seeing you next time on English with Mrs. Smith.